Okay, now. All right, that sounds like we made it a bit. We may have made it out. So it's our first time doing a live a live stream, and yes, it comes with some trouble. So I suppose we're going to kick off, and errors all aside, if you're watching over here, I'm going to give you a link. If you're having trouble, great David Lynch tribute. Oh, I guess I can just click on it. Oh, there it is. It looks like it's working. Okay. All right. We're going to let it go and start rolling forward because that's all we can
All
do.
right.
If you're on the Quilter one and you can't hear it, go to the New Neighbor. We're dual streaming, so go to the New Neighbor YouTube page. And if you're on the New Neighbor page and you're having trouble, go to the Quilter one. So that should hopefully get us up and running here.
Yeah, welcome to our maiden voyage of the live stream.
Yeah, there you go. So it's all this technology. What could we possibly do? So we're I had all these ideas for topics, and then we turned into technology scramble.
All right.
So let me let's see. Let me ask the obvious question. So we're here today to talk about the Quilter Elevate, Quilter / New Neighbor Elevate. Amp Effects Cab. So the world, I think, is kind of wondering a lot of stuff as to what it is and what we're going to be doing with it. But I think question number one, before we get there, is hey, Brian, how you doing? Where have you been the last few years? So you came over here, about 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's been coming up on 3 years. Well, 2.5 years, I guess. So. Yeah. So, anyone out there wondering, what happened? How did we get together? How did New Neighbor and Quilter, become under one umbrella? And it's kind of an interesting story, but I'm going to try not to drag this out too long. So. I guess we have Pat to thank for all of this. As many of you probably know, Pat Quilter founded QSC Audio, and I joined QSC back in '99. And Chris, when did you join QSC?
QSC, boy, I started when I got out of the Marine Corps back in 1990. 90, I think it was 96, yeah.
So, and that's where I first met Chris and Pat, of course. So, I've known these guys for quite a while now. And then you guys left QSC to start Quilter Labs around 2011. And then I left around 2012 to start New Neighbor. But we had always kept in touch. And at a certain point, I got tired of running a business and wearing a lot of different hats and spreading myself too thin. And I really wanted to get back into product development, which I didn't have a lot of time to do when I'm, also running a company. And fortunately, the good folks here at Quilter were kind enough to let me join them, and it took a lot off my plate. So now I can focus on product development, and that's basically the story in a nutshell. That's how I got here, and so I joined on here at Quilter about 2.5 years ago. And for the majority of that time, I've been working on this new product that we're going to show you in a little while.
You see, I have this different memory of the days where Brian walks into my office at QSC and he's like, check out this little pedal. That's why I'm like, you got to find the original wet reverb pedal, because he comes in with this little tiny, and reverb, especially back in '96, if we kind of go on our Wayback Machine, there really wasn't a lot of good stuff. Definitely not a lot of good stuff at the time. And I still remember plugging it in, and he had called it wet reverb, or I think you were thinking of calling it wet reverb. At
Yeah,
the time.
that's what it ended up.
And that's what it
being
ended
called.
up being. Yeah, but man, what a pedal! It was phenomenal, to say the least. And so I mean, the New Neighbor name has kind of become synonymous with with reverb, but the Brian carried on forward from there. So when he talked to us about coming over here, I stopped by his shop and picked up 2 of every pedal, with the intention of if we're going to be selling these, I got to figure out how to sell them, because most people don't realize we're a really small shop. It's not an ocean of people or some big corporate conglomerate or something to that effect. It's actually we're fairly small little organization. So realistically speaking, it's you got to kind of wear a lot of hats, working here, and one of the things I do is part salesman. So having to kind of have an understanding for the products, I figured if I get a couple of them, I can at least understand what I'm doing. So put them all on a pedal board. I think I had a crocodile tail looper on it. But the thing I'm getting at, it's not just reverb. It was at the time it was a Neuron and the Iconoclast.
Yeah.
And I was using both of those. And quite honestly, I was getting kind of phenomenal sound out of the thing. So, we're used to the concept of, I think the Immerse reverb pedal is one of the top sellers in the market today. I mean, it's if you haven't looked at it, go get on your web browser and go check it out right now. The Immerse Mark II is just an amazing reverb pedal, with multiple different reverb functions on it. But it was the Neuron and the and the Iconoclast that really kind of blew my mind a little bit, because I'm getting tones better than I would get with other modeling pedals and stuff like that. So after having kind of played for a while using those, I was a little bit kind of blown away. So when we said, okay, well, what's next? When Brian said, okay, what's next? Then he kind of came up with this concept of packing everything into one new unit. It was kind of a no-brainer, because I'm already doing that right now. I'm just using a bunch of cables to accomplish it.
Yeah, and this was something that I'd wanted to do for quite a while, but I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. It was just too big of a project. It would take too long. And so by joining Quilter, I spent all my time working on this, and I mean, it still took 2.5 years, but
well, you started with a new chip, right? Like you didn't just.
It's it's a new platform for me.
Platform, yeah.
It's a lot of stuff that I hadn't worked with before, so there was a lot of algorithms that had to get ported over.
So at that end, there's plenty more to tell about the product, but story-wise, it's been a long time coming. I know we actually gave a sneak preview at NAMM this year, which which was kind of fun for me to see people. I don't know how I watched you for a little bit, watching people, but at NAMM it was kind of cool to just see how many people resonated with the concept, because it's a bit of a different you went a different direction is the way to say it. So try being CEO of a musical instrument company and have someone come in and say, yeah, we're going to do everything different. And deep down inside you're going, oh no.
Yeah.
Because different usually means that it's a marketing battle, you against the world, and it's hard to kind of get behind that. You always want to take it's a natural thing for all of us. We just want to take the easy path. But it's so in my mind, I'm thinking, we can have a Dumble clone on it. We can have a Marshall stack on it. But, you went a different way. And,
yeah. I mean, that's certainly the case. And I don't know how deep we want to get into this right now before we start talking about the product. I guess let me just say it this way. So we refer to this product as the anti-modeler because we've decided to not do amp models and things of that nature where we're modeling other pieces of gear.
Yep.
And I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But maybe we should just go ahead and just introduce the product. Reintroduce it. I mean, this is, as Chris said, we did preview this at NAMM. So it's not exactly a secret. Although we have changed a few things about it, mostly graphically. So if you did see it at NAMM, it will look a little bit different. So
at the highest level view, kind of if it's the anti-modeler, what do we mean by that? I guess for definition's sake, what is modeling to you, Brian?
Modeling. Well, so our audience may not be aware that a long time ago, before I joined QSC, I worked at St. Louis Music, and they made crate amplifiers, Ampeg amplifiers, and they had a couple other brands. And I had actually designed a modeling amplifier for them. This was one of the first modeling amplifiers. This was back when, modeling was a pretty new thing. And I personally did not find it very satisfying, like the process of modeling other gear. I felt that it was too limiting because you have this technology, you have DSP that can do a lot, and you're limiting it to just trying to reproduce the sound of vintage gear. And I know that there are people that's what they want.
Well, but it's challenging because you can, and that's one of the things that I agree is frustrating, because you hear, or I'm sorry, you see a model that someone created that's like this is a Marshall JMP1, this is a Plexi, this is a Hot Rod Deluxe. I don't know why you'd want to, but whatever. But when you think about it, I can line 10 people up, and all 10 of them will agree that none of the models are right. That's one of the frustrations.
That's right. So yeah, in addition to sort of limiting yourself to only reproducing sounds that have already been done, you're also kind of you run into that problem where now you have to faithfully reproduce this thing. And that's not always an easy thing to do, because the way an amp sounds depends on a lot of factors. So there's another reason, though, that we didn't want to do modeling.
Right.
And I think this is probably the more important reason. And that is a lot of guitarists don't necessarily know what a particular model is supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
I mean, most guitarists haven't gone out and played through all of these different amps. So you're asking them to create a sound based on an amp model that they may not be sure what it sounds like. And then on top of that, even if they do know what it sounds like, the model itself may not be completely accurate. So it adds a layer of complexity when you're trying to create a sound, because I think most players, they are trying to reproduce a sound that is either in their head or is something that they've heard somewhere.
Right.
And maybe they know what gear was used to create that sound. Maybe they don't know. But by forcing them to use models, it adds that layer of complexity.
Right.
And so what we wanted to do was just give them a more direct path to create that sound.
Right.
So you don't need to have any understanding of what these classic amps sound like. You can just dive right in and dial in the sound that you're trying to reproduce.
Well, and then, there's the whole thing about amp in a room. Okay, so great. You know what, the amp sounds like on a recording with every, through a tube mic pre and this expensive microphone and whatnot. But what does the actual amplifier sound like in a room in the first place? So there's even if you do go play through one of those amps, okay, good on you. You heard what it sounds like, when you're playing it in a room. The vast majority of what we hear, musically speaking, is something that's been recorded, processed, EQ'd, sliced, diced, run through two, CL76 compressors. It's so the reality is the amp actually sounds nothing like, and that's
Right.
actually one of the, one of at least interesting things for me when I was looking up, because, it's having made a lot of what are going to be the factory presets. One of the things I discovered was when I would look up what was used to create it, sometimes, like you'd hear the story of, this is a good one, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. So it's a very peculiar sound. And I look up how it was done, and the answer is the microphone fell over. So, so there's kind of no way you could ever recreate that sound if you tried. So even if I had the right, a tool, the kind of a common toolkit, I still probably I'd get something close, but would I find the exact thing? And, what is the exact thing ultimately? That's really fundamentally for the guitarist more important. What is the sound you want? Getting from zero to there, I think, is actually today very complicated. Up until I've been using this thing, but I kind of joke around and say, hey, I'm customer number one, because I've probably made more presets and used it to record more things than anybody at this point. But just seeing the difference between having to load up, I was explaining to Brian, load up a complicated workflow to build myself a preset on a separate app, and then go back and try to record that in Pro Tools or whatever, only to you go, well, that's not right. Come back and re-record it, and I can hear all the people saying reamp. That comes with its own problems too. Like you kind of can't escape, the complexity of doing that. And that was the first time ever that I was able to just sit down. I can reach over with my left hand, dial in the exact sound I want instantly. It takes me moments to get what I'm hearing in my head, record it, have that on to the, have it in the song, in the context of the song as I'm recording, and not have to go through a bunch of hoops to get there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so it's amp in a room. It's the complexity of recording that I think, we don't appreciate how much we play limbo to do that. So. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when we set out to make this product, I would say there's probably three things that we wanted to achieve. One is obviously it's got to sound great. I mean, that's sort of a given.
That's a given. Yeah.
The second thing was that we wanted to balance the simplicity of use with the functionality. So, the more functionality you add to something, the more complicated it becomes. And so we really wanted to try to strike a balance there of having it be relatively easy to use, having enough functionality to satisfy most people, but not be overly complicated. And then the third thing, it had to be affordable. And
Right.
so, it's easy to make a product that has every feature that anybody would ever want, but it's going to be expensive and complicated to use. And you know, there are products out there that do that. So we wanted to price it. We wanted to hit a price target that we felt most guitarists could afford. Can we bring up the other? You got a duplicate of the chats.
Oh, I think they're just it's doing both.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the same. Oh, no, I take it back.
Just bear with us, folks.
There we go.
Okay. So, that being said, should we show them the product now?
I suppose we can do that. That's oh yeah, all the stuff that you guys actually showed up for. Okay, here we go. Let's dive in. So, looks good, doesn't it? Hang on while I plug the guitar in.
Is it up on the stream? Is the overhead up? It is.
It is.
Okay. So you'll notice we branded it both Quilter and New Neighbor. So you might be asking, like, you know, what does that mean?
Sorry. It works.
So does it sound like a Quilter or does it sound like a New Neighbor? So if you're familiar with the New Neighbor products, this is going to sound like a New Neighbor product. But this was a team effort, and so it's co-branded Quilter and New Neighbor. And to make a long story short, the Quilter dealer network is more substantial than the New Neighbor dealer network. And so by co-branding it, it enables us to get it into more dealers.
Well, without losing the legacy of kind of the work that you've put in. So that would be wrong too. So there's that.
Yeah.
So if I zip through, and there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm not going to try to play.
So while Chris is figuring out what he wants to play here, I guess I'll just give you an overview. So this is it's essentially, you know, a guitar rig in one box. And as I mentioned, we didn't set out to try to include everything that everyone would ever want. But we did try to put in everything that most people would need to reproduce most sounds most tones that they would want to play. And you can see just by looking at it what's in it. The signal chain is shown through this row of buttons. And it can store up to 400 user presets. It will come with 100 factory presets that are pre-programmed. It's stereo output. It has a Bluetooth input, so you can play your tracks through it and play along. It has USB audio output, and it will also have a web application that you can use for firmware updates and for preset management and editing. It has an expression control input. It has MIDI input. What am I forgetting, Chris?
Well, and you have a separate left and right. I'm sorry, the separate aux out. So if you're one of those folks who's, you know, you have to send a mix to the front of house, and you have to send a mix to to your side house monitors or whatnot. You can basically have two outputs with two separate level controls that way. Is one of the the obvious ones. So we have the XLR outputs that are kind of your main outs. Where there's a couple more 1/4 inch outs if you want to run it into amplifiers, and then of course the separate aux out, which you can use as headphones or you can use as
Yeah, you can use the headphones or the aux output.
Or the aux output, yeah.
Or as a stereo aux output if you have the a Y cable.
So yeah, I mean, long and short of it, it's kind of it's an amazingly complete solution. I'll say that much. And Brian, he as he was saying, is you when you think about kind of all the stuff it takes to create a sound. So being kind of the first fellow that had to kind of dig in and start creating presets for it, there were some presets where I'm going, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. There's no way. Using just the tools provided. And actually there was some meetings I would interrupt and go, no guys, I did this insane thing with this thing that I didn't actually think was possible and pulled it off, So you'd be amazed what you can do. First off, just from the front face of the thing,
Tell them about the Vernon Reed story.
Oh, the Vernon Reed at the NAMM show. Yeah, exactly. So he came into the Airstream. So for those of you who don't know, we usually bring a 1968 Airstream with us to the NAMM show, which we've repurposed as kind of a mobile meeting room / studio. We can record stuff in it and whatnot. And Vernon actually came by because he's an old friend of Quilter. He uses a Mach 2 head. I think he's got a Tone Block 202, or two of them actually, because he tends to play in stereo. Which he uses with his Line 6 Helix is what he was actually using at the time. So he came in and as we're talking about it, about this new product, I'm like, I have to tell you about it. It's practically like it's my job, Vernon. And Vernon says to me, Chris, well, actually, he's like, look, I'm on the technology I'm on. I know how to use it. I'm good. I don't really want anything. So, don't bother telling me about it. So, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, no worries. I'm not going to push you to, try to get something when you're already happy with what you got. And so he then went on to complain about programming the thing for 10 minutes straight until finally I'm like, Vernon, let me just show you, right? So think up. I mean, and mind you, at this point in time, I'd done 40, 50 some odd presets. I can't remember how many now, but to kind of have that ready for the NAMM show. So I say to him, he's like, I have to dig into the manual to remember how to adjust a noise gate. I'm like, oh, Vernon, come on, let me show you, how simple it is. And I reach over and I just touch the noise gate. And, and incidentally, that's, getting into the technology, it's capacitive touch sensing. So there's no button that I'm pushing. It senses that my finger has touched that. And that's how it adjusts. But I go through and just show him how easy it is to just change that noise, the noise gate on it. And he's like, oh, okay, dang, that was pretty simple actually. I'm like, it's really intuitive. And so as I'm kind of going through and explaining all this to him, I say, I'll tell you what, do me a favor and just pick a song, pick any song. And he's like, thanks for a second. He says, Rush. And I forget which song it was now. But might have been Limelight or something like that. So I just start literally reaching over, just touching, the various functions on it. And as I'm just touching the functions, I'm dialing it in right in front of his face. And 60 seconds later, I've got it, a creditable version of it, through the speakers that we had inside the Airstream. And he says to me, okay, fine, send me one. Because it really was that easy. I've told the story a few times, but it's the simplicity of it. And once you kind of get used to it, and it's no more complicated than putting together a pedal board. If you can put together a pedal board, you already know everything you need to know to program this. Now you may have to learn a little bit here or there about this, that, or the other, but you will pretty quickly discover that there is no sound that you can't achieve, with the exception of maybe some ridiculous, somebody used some sort of mechanical, I don't know, Well, even if you had like a Leslie rotating speaker, I could do that on here easy. So there's kind of not many sounds that we kind of can't get to and get there pretty quick. So, as it kind of goes, one of the things that, at least for me personally, that I discovered was if there's something I'm trying to achieve sonically, there's kind of nothing stopping me from doing it except for a few minutes of time. So if I'm just trying to listen to a recording, for example, of LaGrange, and trying to recreate it, it helps if I push down So the point is you can go from something like that to, rapidly make it over to something that's just ridiculous. Forget it. I'm not going to try to embarrass myself playing Eric Johnson. But the point is all of these tones are within grasp and easy grasp. And in terms of because initially I was, if Brian will remember this, it's kind of funny. The first thing I did was I made 10 different quote unquote models of amplifiers. So here's a Fender Deluxe, a Fender Tweed, a Marshall Stack, this, that, and the other. And it quickly became apparent that that wasn't the way to think of kind of how to create tones for this. And we rapidly kind of built something that was a little more generic than just kind of trying to throw our version of a model at it, and instead focus in on trying to achieve a specific sound. So building a better set of tools to achieve a different sound. And, that is actually intuitively more correct. It didn't feel that way initially. It wound up that way as we kind of learned exactly what we were doing, or I should say as I learned what I was doing. So I don't think, from the standpoint with this product, I don't think to myself, oh, how can I sound like a Marshall Stack at all? I think, what do I want to, what is it that I want to accomplish with this? Do I want to make Cliffs of Dover? Okay, sit down, give a listen to the thing, and then just, with all the functions off, dial in the basic gain tone that I'm after. Now, just for grins and not, well, actually, we'll do that in another video because we'll be on here forever. But I'll actually demonstrate kind of how that's done. And of course, we'll make factory videos. But literally, you could kind of throw anything at me, and as long as I can hear a sample of the song if I don't know it, I'm pretty quick to dial it in because you build your basic gain structure, you build your basic cabinet structure, and once you got that dialed in, the rest of it's kind of cake.
Yeah.
It's the simplicity of thinking from the standpoint of what do I want to sound like it's the anti-modeler. It's not I'm trying to sound like and failing to sound like a Marshall Stack or if I'm playing Journey, then I want to have the old Plexi, right? It's more from the standpoint of what do you want to sound like, and just giving the right set of tools to achieve that simply. So the beauty of it is and I'm going to make the video for it to kind of explain how you do it, is how easy it is to get from point A to Z. You're done in minutes.
Yeah. So one thing that we did to try to make this fairly easy to program is we implemented essentially 2 layers of programming. The first layer is really easy. Basically, you just pick the effect block that you want to change. So let's say you want to go into the compressor, and it just has what we call a mode, and you pick, how much compression you want. And that's sort of the easy way to do it. For someone who wants more flexibility and wants to get down into the parameter level, they can use the custom mode. And then once you've selected the custom mode, you can scroll down into all of the parameters for that block. And so that gives you a little more flexibility depending on, if you want to, deep dive down into the parameter level, or you just want something really simple. And when you're trying to create presets, it actually makes it a lot faster, because for a lot of times you don't really need to get down to the parameter level. You'll just pick the block you want. You pick one of the modes that's in there, and that'll get you pretty close. And a lot of times it's close enough for what you're trying to do, and it's a really quick way to set up a preset. The other thing you can do is once you've picked a mode that you like or that's pretty close and you want to tweak it a little bit, you can actually copy that into the custom mode and then go in and tweak it a little further from there down at the parameter level. So, a couple of different ways to program it, just depending on what you're comfortable with. And we think that makes it, really easy and quick to get up and running and create the presets that you want with it. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to come with 100 factory presets, which Chris created the bulk of those, and we spent a lot of time trying to get these right.
Oh yeah.
And they make a really good starting point for a lot of different tones. And so you can pick one of those that you like or that's close to what you want. You can copy that into a user preset and just tweak it from there. So that's another way to create your own custom presets very quickly and easily.
Here's the hardest one to play. I always get a laugh on that. There's no chords in the whole song. Oh, that's always fun. I'm not going to sing for you guys, no matter how much you beg. But yeah, I mean, just the ability, to kind of get so quickly through totally different tones, So yeah, it's rather astonishing how number one, how easy it is to develop stuff for it. But then again, to just take all that now, because it's being more taking it more from a song approach as opposed to a patch or a preset, if you will. Even though we call these presets, a lot of times you wind up with with things that are so focused on trying so hard to sound like something, and that was a big frustration for me. I got a hold of one of the competitive products out there that costs 5 times what this is going to cost, and I'm playing through it, and I was telling Brian it was the most annoying thing on earth, because it's I'm probably giving the game away. It's something that actually requires you to plug 2 things into the pedal, the volume expression pedal. So I'm plugged into the thing, and I'm in this quiet part of the song, and I just wanted to switch from the sound of one thing to something with more distortion, right? So I switch so I can kind of do my, the little kind of creep in sounds. Whatever have you, stuff like that, right? So I go to, do that to give that nice swell sound, and and the moment I hit it is wide open. So literally, because it changed to a different preset, it didn't know where the pedal was located. And I mean, I suppose that all makes sense from an engineering standpoint if you're thinking that way. But, for the guitarist that actually has to, do something kind of, musically speaking, unique, well, you're stuck now. You're in the land of you're stuck in this preset. Too bad for you. And I have to say, it's a frustration. The big chief problems I've personally dealt with, programming is never something where I'm content with it. And even in the case of this, there are things that I would probably want to do ever so slightly different for my personal playing style. But let's just say for example, I wanted a little less gain, and I wanted to change it. It's already kind of letting me know right on the here. Let me switch you over here. We'll undo that. So let's just say I wanted a little less gain. I go to turn the gain down. The very first thing it's doing is it's telling me that you want to save this. You want to save that new preset. So this way, if even the factory, as you were saying, it's a nice starting point, but it opens up that opens up the ability for me now to make whatever it was that we came up with. That might be actually perfect for my instrument, but it's not perfect for for your instrument. It's really easy to do that. And when you save it, now it's immediately in the user presets. You can rename it. You can do whatever. With the web function, which it's not available today, but the product's not available today either. But but when we go live with the thing, the ability to just edit your presets live right there on this, on a web browser. I mean, we kind of brush over the fact that this thing actually connects with Google Chrome web browser, and I think a couple other web browsers too. But
yeah, it works with Edge and Opera, I think.
Opera, yeah. So the ability to do all that, rename it, throw them into different set lists. So it's approached from more of the standpoint of somebody, if you're going to play live music, your ability to kind of quickly and easily get this thing to do what you need it to do and be ready for a gig. You can do your set list right on the screen, reorder your set, whatever it may be, and then just get back and forth to everything so quickly. Just by way of demonstrating. If I want to change from all preset lists to our favorite lists, so say this was an example where this is going to be our set list. So we got Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, kind of being our first song, and we go right into Comfortably Numb. Just having your songs and set lists set up in such a way as they're based on what it is you're doing just makes more sense. Now, a lot of guitarists, I'm one of them. I should say I was one of them. Kind of tend to just have 4 or 5 food groups of tone. Is what a lot of my contemporaries would tell me. And I think a lot of that gets to the reasoning behind that being that you're limited by the technology. And that is actually one of the most beautiful things, is just being able to get away from that, make a patch that's a song, and be able to switch quickly through all these different lists to build what I need. And if you play multiple gigs, well, you can set up all your different lists according to the gig you're playing.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes things simple, and so you're not stuck with the 4 or 5 food groups. You can kind of there's a little bit of McDonald's involved and have it your way, Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be fairly revolutionary for people.
Yeah, you had mentioned the web app, which will be done by the time we launch the product.
Yeah.
So you won't have to wait for that. And it is a web app, so you don't have to install anything, and you don't have to worry about, do you need to update the app or anything like that? It's always going to be the latest version. You just you just click the link and it works.
And for those folks later down the line who are just getting your Elevate for the first time, upgrade the firmware. We're all laughing about that because it's a challenge. Finding bugs in even a relatively simple system like this is it's still quite the challenge. Trying to break the thing. That's the process we're kind of going through right now as we're on the last lap of production to get it ready for everybody. Is hours spent in here, doing cool things like the one. I'll zoom out so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But bear with me a second.
I saw in the chat someone was asking if the blocks can be if the enable for the blocks can be assigned to a foot switch.
Aha.
They can be turned on and off via MIDI. So if you have a MIDI controller, you can enable or disable any of the blocks through a MIDI controller.
So I'm kind of zooming in here, and although you can't really see it, I'm going to turn on and off the pre-EQ, which is this guy here. So I push the button, and as you see, it immediately turns functions on or off. So I'm basically controlling this. So if you have to play a song and you want no reverb on one part, you can connect it to any MIDI controller. And as long as it's customizable, you can send the messages so that you can remotely control all this. And you can actually change the patches. So there's using program changes and control changes. You can do all the above. So it's fairly extensible. You could build you can in essence build your system around this and get more or less anything you could possibly hope to want. In terms of just playing on stage, if you're playing at home, one of the cool things we glossed over it a bit, but because it's interesting, but it's not kind of the main selling point, and that is it has this. I keep calling it's the most high-end possible, which it might be more superlative than I should be. But how would you describe the difference of what we've done with the Bluetooth, or I'm sorry, Jamlink? We can't call it Bluetooth.
Oh, right. We got to call it Jamlink. So the Jamlink is, it uses Bluetooth. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
So you stream Bluetooth from your device, and the implementation in Elevate will use a high quality codec. Okay, so in many of the devices we've seen, they tend to use the default codec for Bluetooth, which is fine for like voice quality, but it's not great for audio quality for music. But we specifically chose one that uses higher quality codecs, so you'll get much higher quality music audio if you're streaming from your device.
And the value of all that, of course, is that for all you who play with backing tracks, your backing tracks are just going to sound great. For those of you practicing at home, I always kind of cite the example of I had to go to a gig and play. I had less than 45 minutes to learn 6 songs. And now I have to do that by setting my phone on a table and playing not through my pedals at all, but playing through just the guitar itself and trying to figure out how to make all that work. Yeah, to say the least, it's a bit challenging to kind of then go up and try to piece that all together with your 5 food groups of tone.
Yeah.
It was a challenge, to say the least. This thing, you pop a set of headphones on, you plug, you connect your Bluetooth phone to it, and you're in there. And the value of that, like when you're rehearsing it and you're playing along to something and you just need to hear the track. Well, now you're connected, via the PA system, so you can play it right back on your phone, and everybody can hear it if you're in-ears or if you're using monitors or whatnot. It simplifies it. So there's a lot of I should say you get a lot for your money on this. Did we mention what we're going to?
So yeah, I don't think we've mentioned that yet. Do you want to talk about when it will be available and how much it's going to cost?
So it will be available and it will cost something. No. Stupid dad jokes. Okay. We're looking most likely at this point for a September 1st launch date, September 1st. That way we can make sure all our dealers have them in stock and nobody's left wondering, hey, where do we go to get one of these? Go to your favorite Quilter dealer and knock yourself out. Price-wise, we're going to start it off at the low price of $999. Just kidding. No, I'm not going to do the salesman shtick.
Yeah.
It's $499. $499 is our minimum advertised price. So if you can afford to buy, half of the effects pedals out there nowadays, for the cost of 2 of most anything, you can have a whole suite of products. That gives you all that functionality and more. So I don't know. For me, that's pretty compelling. And it would be one thing if it sounded bad, then I could argue, well, it's it's worth every penny. But in this case, especially in light of all the kind of madness that's gone out of the all the madness that's gone out in the world, with tariffs and all the things that are, we're seeing changing on in our case, daily basis. If you aren't following the rest of the music industry out there, that we literally have businesses going under, from this. So fortunately, we've worked with our partners to kind of establish a little bit more of a solid kind of strategy going forward to be able to still provide, our products at a lower cost. We should probably do a podcast one day and just talk about, the kind of the state of our industry.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure everyone's somewhat aware of
by
the
now.
difficulties that many of us are facing right now.
Yeah.
But we should probably save that for another.
We'll save that one for another
live
time.
stream.
So start asking questions, folks, because we're gonna wrap this up here in a minute. But if you start asking questions now, we'll get to them by the time we go to wrap it up.
So, Torsten, I hope I'm
Torsten?
saying your name right, is asking which mod types are in the mod block. The mod block's probably one of the more complex blocks because of how much it will do. So there are sort of 3 modules in the mod block. I'll talk about it, and Chris, you can kind of scroll through. There are kind of 3 modules in there, and so for each of the 3 modules, you have various options. So the first is the tremolo. So the tremolo module can do either a mono or stereo tremolo. The second module is a sine wave LFO modulator, which you can do chorus and different types of chorus. So you can have like your standard stereo chorus, a tri-chorus, a chorus doubler. Okay, Chris is scrolling through these now. Actually, I'm gonna go through the custom mode here.
There you go.
Let me exit out of whatever we were in there, and let's go to the custom mode so we can see everything. I'm just going to create a new preset here.
That's a good idea.
New. And save. Okay. Let's turn on the modulator. Let's go to custom. I don't want to import a custom mode. Custom. Okay. So, I already talked about the tremolo. You've got a centered or mono tremolo. Panning is a stereo tremolo, and those are your 2 options for the tremolo. On the next block, the next module, I called it, is it's a sine wave LFO. So you can do a chorus doubler, stereo chorus, tri-chorus, or vibrato. And then on the third module is a triangle wave LFO. And so on that one, you can do a mono flanger, stereo flanger, a detune chorus, a detune doubler, which is really cool. And so for those 3 modules, you can pick any of the effects in those 3, and they work simultaneously. So it's like you have like 3 modulator type pedals that you can run at the same time. Also on the modulator, this is kind of cool. It's a little esoteric, but it's kind of cool. You can it's a multi-band modulator, meaning that you can choose what part of the frequency spectrum you're applying the modulator to. So normally you like have it applied to the whole thing, but sometimes, people find a chorus to sound like a little thin, and that's because the way chorusing works, and I'm going to skip over a lot of the technical details. It tends to kind of notch out the low frequencies, which can make it sound a little thin. And so this lets you band limit that, so that if you want to basically like bypass the low frequencies, you can select where it bypasses that. So in this case, everything below 200 hertz would just be dry, would be pass through dry, and everything above, say, 3 kilohertz in this case would be pass through dry, and then the modulator would just be applied in the middle frequencies. So by using that, you can achieve even more versatility in the effect. You can do things that kind of approximate a Leslie, or you can do things that sound a little bit warmer by not applying it to the high frequencies.
Right.
Or as I mentioned earlier, you can remove some of that thinness that you can sometimes get with a chorus. So that's just a really cool, like, added bonus feature in the modulator block.
And the next big question: will it fit in a toolbox? Well, of course. It's actually.
How big is your toolbox?
It's pretty tiny. Like, I have relatively large hands.
I have small hands.
He has small hands, and it kind of if it's two double wide pedals set together. So there you have it. He says it needs a pitch shifter, or maybe it has one and I missed it. I don't think there is.
It does not have a pitch shifter.
So not on board. Let me see. Could you talk about the gain block? Oh, here's a conversation.
Okay. I mean, this is really an entire live stream.
That's an entire
all
live
on
stream by
its
itself.
own. Wow.
Maybe
we should just dedicate a live stream to that, because there is a lot going on.
Yeah.
Let me just suffice to say that the amount of processing that takes place in this, 50% of it is dedicated to the gain block.
Yep.
And then everything else is in the other 50%. That's how much stuff is going on in the gain block.
And I'll say this much: it shows, especially when you're trying to achieve something. Like there's some presets on here that hold on. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Where one day Brian comes in and he's all oh, check this out. I made a where's it at? I'll have to plug it back in for this.
Is it the Rockman?
Yes, it's the Rockman. He made a Rockman.
I kind of knocked off the Shoals Rockman for one of these presets.
But it's so good. I'll find it.
It's the Hysteria preset, right?
That's what I'm looking for.
The weird thing is going through creating these factory presets.
Yeah.
And you kind of discover like how often the Rockman was used to record a lot of stuff that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know, like almost the entire Def Leppard Hysteria album was recorded using a Shoals Rockman.
I don't know. I can't play it, man. That's the problem.
There you go.
One of these days I'll figure out how to do it, but anyways, there you go. Def Leppard, I'm not. But it's astonishing because he comes in one day and says, "Oh, I got a Rockman in there now," and I'm going, "You got to be kidding me!" What is it this thing can't do? And many presets later, I've discovered, there's really nothing that if you can hear it, you can probably make the preset. And I say that to the average person, not to like somebody who sits there all day and and toys around with complex algorithms for making tone. Anybody could do it. It's actually really simple.
Torsten asks, does it have fixed latency? Yes, it does. It has fixed latency. And I can look it up for you. Just give me a second here. At least I think I have it. 1.6 milliseconds, fixed latency. And Patrick asks, will it have bass presets? Well, we should talk about preset packs.
Preset packs. Actually, that's a good one. So it's something we're thinking about all the time. So there'll probably, undoubtedly, be some preset packs for sale. But perhaps more importantly, at least in my mind, because there's a tendency, and at least in my head, to think that a device like this is going to be considered for guitar only. And it can handle bass just fine and become, quite the direct for bass, and something that can really kind of build some quality tone. In fact, in the cabinet section, there's actually the last two, bright bass cab and warm bass cab, are meant just for bass frequencies alone. So the answer is, yeah, there's going to be a bass preset pack and an acoustic preset pack, which will probably be for free. You download them and import them into, using the online software. Import them right in, and that way, if you're a bass player or an acoustic guitar player and you're looking for something that can kind of provide that breadth of functionality, then yeah, but by all means, we haven't forgotten you, and we're thinking about that. So, and we'll probably do a bunch of preset packs. I know I want to do like a 80s preset pack for guitarists that have to do 80s music, 90s preset pack. There's kind of the obvious stuff that you can do, metal preset pack, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there'll maybe a small charge for some of them.
Hey, Kai. Good to see you.
Our friend Kai. So I guess that's getting us down to the end here. Oh, Patrick says, good to know. And with that, we're kind of running out of, there's a lot more to talk about, I'm sure. But, one thing I can say is thanks for being at our first Q show.
Yeah, and I think we should mention this is going to be a regular thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We're
gonna try to do this every week, and we may mix it up a little bit. I don't know if I'll be here every time, but I'm going to try to. If Chris will have me, I will be here.
Yeah.
And we'll dive deeper into Elevate in the future, and maybe talk about some other things too.
Well, we're definitely. There's so much to talk about out there, and if you have suggestions or what else, what other stuff do you want to see? Let us know. We went through, we sliced our studio in half here just for fun. I can show you. So we're sitting on one side of the. Here's our drum kit and all that sort of stuff. Quick view around the studio. Sorry, I'm making you guys dizzy here. But yeah, so it's we tore up our studio and turned it into kind of a live streaming podcasting setup so that we could bring you some more of this sort of content. That, and so that we can start making, because that's one of the big goals, is to start making more content for how do you program the Elevate. And we'll probably talk more about other products as well. So the use case scenarios, the product functionality, et cetera, et cetera. We kind of had to give ourselves a nice spot to do this, and there will be a lot more to talk about. We'll get Pat in here. We'll have lots of fun. That'll be kind of fun anyway.
Yeah, and we like to hear from you guys as well.
Yep.
It helps us a lot to know if we're headed in the right direction and what we can do better in the future. So. Yeah, please, feel free to comment and send us your suggestions.
And you always have to say like, subscribe.
Yeah, yeah.
And ring that bell.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to.
It was
I'm not
hard.
going to do it.
It was hard for me to do it too, because I just I remember when that became a trend. You know, not to go off on the wrong foot here, but remember when that became a trend? It used to be you could just watch videos and enjoy yourself. Now it's like
it's
annoying.
Yeah.
And
I'm not going to annoy you with that.
Yeah, I already did, so he doesn't have to. But keep an eye on it. We'll of course, if you follow us on the socials, we'll let you know what we're going to do and what's coming next. And I think for the next pass, the big one that we need to talk about is the gain block. So we'll make it a deeper dive into some of the parameters of all the stuff.
I think we'll probably just start going through each of the blocks.
Yeah.
So some of the live streams may cover a few of them, but something like the gain block, it might take a whole episode.
Yeah. I'd love to tell you that even I understand it completely, but I'm fairly confident I'm wrong in that. It is amazing. Number one, tune in for that, because there's some cool functionality in there, the likes of which you've never seen before, and you got to check this out. But yeah, let's do that. We'll dive in.
Yeah, Kai, we've got both windows open. We're viewing comments from both channels. So for those of you who tuned in a little late, we're actually simultaneously broadcasting this to both the Quilter YouTube and the New Neighbor YouTube. So
whoa,
we've got stereo chats going on.
And I'm just discovering something new, that we were looking at the wrong window. Let me see, looking, sounding. Oh, gee, thanks. That's the problem I have with modelers, is you have to spend hours to be happy with the sound. If you can get this in 1 minute, yeah. I mean, I got to say, if there's one thing that even blows me away, I can put on pretty much any song, and 1 to 2 minutes later, depending on how complicated it is, I can have a preset of that. So even though we're going to do preset packs, I'm realizing quickly that customers are going to get these and just make their own presets. It's just not that hard. I'm not saving you that much time making a preset pack. But yeah, so we'll get scheduled on the next one. And again, send your suggestions in. You can email us at theqshow@quilterlabs.com. And
wow, you made that email already?
It's if you email anything at quilterlabs.com,
okay.
But a real name, it comes to me. But you can email that dork at quilterlabs.com. I'll get that too. But yeah, so if you have ideas for future things or stuff you want to know and we didn't cover it here, by all means, send it in and we'll think about it and figure out what we're going to do next. Thank you so much for coming to our first one. We're really excited. We're excited for the rollout of this product. And we're excited to hear back from you. So we're looking forward to seeing what you got to say. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.